local robberies targeting places like Foot Locker. Plus, as you're about to see, these aren't desperate criminals stealing to feed their families. No, instead, these are full-time shoplifters. This is their job, and they fear nothing.
These brazen robberies are often caught on camera, and you can see just how coordinated and quick they are. Dozens of people run into a store and steal items en masse, and that's exactly what happened inside this Nike store.
Now, this is happening at the Foot Locker in a strip mall. The front window appears to be smashed.
That guy right there has 4 boxes. That guy's walking out with 2 boxes, looking right at our cameraman.
As retail theft continues to climb, New York State leaders are pushing for more policing and also tax credits for businesses that improve safety.
Boosters like easy targets, and malls fit the profile perfectly. Brand name stores do not want the bad PR that comes from an aggressive confrontation.
I have never seen as bad as we have seen for the last several months. Retailer is just open game, walk away with anything and nobody is going to challenge.
Statewide, retailers lost $4.5 billion last year. The cost passed on to the consumer, says Matt Cohen with the LIA.
Simple shoplifting's really graduated to organized, sophisticated crimes. It's like the wild, wild west out there.
So a massive theft ring has been repeatedly looting local sportswear stores. But what nobody's talking about is that this is exactly what happens when a city refuses to lock up its thieves. They turn into full-time criminals operating at a scale that threatens to shut down every business in town, and it's only getting worse. Because shoplifting this year has exceeded last year's numbers, with many a small business complaining that it doesn't seem like the city cares about stopping crime. Because if thieves are caught with under $1,000 worth of items, they just get what's called a desk appearance ticket, which means they go to court and face misdemeanor charges that do not result in any jail time. And since there's no time, this teaches our thieves that what they're doing must not really be a crime, bringing about the predictable destruction of our economy, as shoplifting in this state is so bad it costs businesses $4.4 billion a year. And day after day, week after week, the thieves just grow more and more emboldened, stealing greater and greater amounts of merchandise to fund their lifestyles, go on vacations, and escape the harsh realities of a dire economy that only affects the law-abiding. But the real reason we've got gangs looting stores for tens of thousands of dollars a pop is because all of those criminals, they didn't start out stealing that much. Oh no. Frighteningly, it's our laws that have created these criminals, allowing them to steal just enough to not go to jail and perfect their thievery, all while avoiding real punishment. And now they're experts at evading in-store security, law enforcement, and worst of all, experts at reselling everything they steal. Which is exactly what's happening in places like this Foot Locker right over here. So since late May, a gang of shoplifters has been repeatedly targeting stores just like this Foot Locker, stealing tens of thousands of dollars each time they go by. And in one instance, they even hit the same Foot Locker twice in 1 week. And as you're about to see, the way these thieves approach businesses like this is shocking.
These brazen robberies are often caught on camera, and you can see just how coordinated and quick they are. Dozens of people run into a store and steal items en masse, and that's exactly what happened inside this Nike store.
So this is exactly what our local criminals are doing. They stake out the place they want to go after, and they enter quickly, stealing whatever they can and leaving as fast as they can. Here are the images that were sent to Crime Stoppers. It looks like there's 4 of them. And to make matters worse, it looks like they're using stolen vehicles as their getaway cars, because they've got a different vehicle every time they hit up one of these stores. When they first started stealing, they were using a white vehicle for their initial robberies. Then they switched to a gray van, and their most recent heists have been taking place with a dark-colored Cadillac of some sorts. Definitely, we're talking about a well-organized group of thieves that knows exactly what they're doing and how to do it. And before we learn more about how these shady criminals operate and how much money they can actually make doing this, we've already got proof shoplifting's not a victimless crime, because not only do the stores get victimized, whoever's van got stolen, they got victimized too, and now they can't go to work. But work, that's what stealing is to these criminals. It's their full-time business. This is what they get up to do every single day, 5, 6, 7 days a week. And the fact that this is allowed to happen in any city in America is shocking.
Boosters like easy targets, and malls fit the profile perfectly. Brand name stores do not want the bad PR that comes from an aggressive confrontation. As these two walked out of stores with bags full of clothes, no one approached them.
Wow, that tells us a lot. And this is a fascinating look at a theft ring which operates out of New York City. And the first step in their process looks like it's selecting what they think is an easy target. We're talking corporations with hundreds of locations across the country. Apparently, these are the preferred target, not some local business which just has one owner and one location. Probably because nobody at a corporate mega chain is going to put their life on the line for sneakers, t-shirts, or hats. While the workers at a small family-owned business will do anything they can to stop it from shutting down like this place. And big brands, they don't want their image stained by the sins of lawlessness. Just look at Lululemon. They don't lock up anything in their store, even though it gets looted repeatedly. They don't want their customers to go in and see the signs of crime and societal decay all throughout the store. It soils the customer experience in the mind of corporate executives. But the problem is these businesses, they have another way of getting back their losses from theft that a small business like whatever was in here doesn't have. And it hurts their customers without them even knowing it.
I'm not rich. I'm poor. I told you, if I had money, I'd never do this. I know I should work, and you should work, but this is never going to stop because there's other people doing it every day, and poor people. Because it's money. It's money, yes. It's not easy. It's not easy. A lot of people are scared. A lot of people are scared.
So it's important to understand that the shoplifting economy here in New York, $4.4 billion last year. What do you think big corporate mega chains do to get back some of that money? Well, it's simple. They raise their prices. They keep getting their money, and the criminals doing the stealing, they keep getting their money. In fact, the reason that crime is so popular is because thugs at all levels of these retail theft pyramids are making bank. At least until the stores they steal from end up shutting down. But the people we're following around in this mini documentary, they're the boosters. They're not the guys at the top. They select the targets, they do the stealing, and they bring the goods back to the warehouse, which is usually a private residence where the buyer is located. But what's fascinating about this is even these criminals, they admit that what they're doing is wrong, but they also admit that it's so rampant that even if they stop, that's not going to end the crime wave that's going on stealing from stores like this. No, it's just going to keep happening, and they're going to make less money while all of this criminality continues around them, tempting them to get back into this life of stealing. And what's also fascinating is even though they consider themselves to be relatively poor, they don't associate their lack of spending ability from working a normal job as having anything to do with the high levels of crime that stores have to put up with, which they just roll back into the cost of their very same products. Like, look at Lotless. They've got security guards, and they're supposed to be a discount store. Where do you think they get the money for those security guards? Or where do you think a store like Macy's gets the money to run a bike chain through all of their clothing? No, they don't just get that for free. It comes out of the cost of the stuff that is chained up. Yet the most fascinating element to all of this is these criminals, they don't fear jail time because they know it's not going to happen to you. All you'd have to do is send one of those two criminals to jail, and that would be the end of their operation right there. But that's not something New York City wants to do, apparently.
I'm the one that buys from the person that brings me the stuff. I sell it in Colombia to regular people. Like, they come to my store. They love New York. So whatever you bring from New York.
So our criminals, now they're meeting with someone who's called the fence. That person, they buy the goods from the people who do the stealing so that they can then go resell it. Of course, their margin is going to be pretty high because they paid very little, and the criminals themselves can satisfy their goal of offloading all that merchandise. Now, in this particular scenario, the thieves knew what to go steal because the person that was going to buy the merch told them what to go get, which is probably what happens when our local criminals hit up places like a Foot Locker and steal things that they know can be resold easily. But it's not what happens when places like the Reshop here ended up getting robbed, which happens a lot. They now have security out in front of their stores. But since they're a vintage reseller, the inventory they have changes regularly. But even with security in a city like New York, this type of crime is virtually unstoppable because all around us, look, we've got apartments everywhere. Any of them could be hideouts for these crooks. And even the boosters who consider themselves poor make quite a bit of money for the amount of work they do.
I send them pictures of stuff that I see in the mall. They bring me all their stuff and they tell me how much. Okay, 1,626. Okay, leave it at 1,600. Okay.
$1,600 for 1 day's worth of work split between the two crooks. That's $800 each. And when you consider that Uber drivers in New York make around $200 a day, it would take an entire week to make as much as these guys just made in 1 night. And remember, they've got no expenses since they didn't pay anything for the stuff that they stole, which means the laws that we have here essentially allow for-profit, pure profit businesses to operate with nothing to stop them. And what other job are you gonna get where you can make $800 to $1,000 every day you work, which doesn't require a college degree or any specialized training? And with no barriers to entry and no consequences for performing said tasks, what risk is there for these criminals, really? Well, as you're about to see, not only is the answer to that very little, there are other things, other changes that have happened recently in New York City that are affecting the ability of these criminals to operate as brazenly and as visibly as we're witnessing, which is why our shoplifting problem is only gonna get worse before it gets better. So this tarp-covered trolley that has cases of stuff in it, which is next to this police car, that's someone's merchandise. Now, it very well may be legally obtained merchandise, but it's being sold out here on the street, and rampant street vending is something that the city has just been content to allow for a very long time, and the problem with that is it gives people an easy way to offload stolen property not too far from where it may have come from, and a lot of times when police raid street vendors, they find out that many of them are selling things that they didn't pay for, and that many of them do not have permits.
I have never seen as bad as we have seen for the last several months.
Khan owns and operates several convenience stores and has witnessed the smashing, grabbing, and fleeing.
Retailer is just open, walk away with anything.
Well, I think we know where some of the stolen candy that is being sold in this city comes from. It comes from places like this bodega that's got the worst crime the owner has ever seen since he opened. And this isn't happening just because we don't jail thieves in this city. There are other things happening here that make it even harder to convict them of committing a crime even when it's obvious that that's what they're doing. Like the front door rule, which, as you're about to see, makes it pretty much impossible to stop thieves in this city because they can be roaming around the store, stealing things, taking them off the shelves, putting them in their backpack, obviously without any intention of buying one thing from your store. And are they stealing? Absolutely not, because you've got to let them get to the front door of the store, to that 5-foot area between the welcome mat and the street, and they've got to try to make a break for it. And it is at that moment when they become a shoplifter, not before, when they were loading up their backpack. These are the instructions that police are giving to store owners after they get robbed, to let them get to the front door so that when an arrest is made, there's actual proof and a conviction is likely. And after you see this madness in action and you learn the reason why this is how things have to be in New York City, you may just lose your mind.
I make sure I let them go to the front door because that's what the NYPD says, that you have to let them go to the front door or this is not technically stealing it, even though he is already stealing. And I'm like, what do you have in your bag? Get that out of there. Then I take the box away.
So obviously there are a whole lot of problems with this policy. It's extremely dangerous because the crook can only be encountered by the business owner when they're at the moment of escape. They very well just may make a break for it, and they've got a lot of incentives to get that extra 5 feet out of the store completely with their goods. This is why many of these incidents sadly turn violent. But do you want to know why we have to have a front door shoplifting rule in this city? Well, it's because using your own personal bag for shopping isn't illegal here. In fact, it's encouraged. Because not only are single-use plastic and paper bags banned, stores are actually prohibited from stopping people from shopping with their own personal bag to avoid paying a fee for a new one. Before the ban on store-issued single-use bags was in effect, somebody roaming around inside your store with a burlap sack filling it up with merchandise would be an automatic red flag. But now that's what everybody's doing. Everybody's got a bag filling it up with stuff because nobody wants to pay even more for the stuff on the shelf. And this has a lot to do with why retail theft is at unstoppable levels in our city. Because not only can criminals roam the store for as long as they please with their bag filling it up with merchandise, they're also allowed to remain in the store with it filled to the brim, waiting for the right moment to try and make their escape. If they're over here, they're not a shoplifter. Then they're over here, they're not a shoplifter. Up when they're right here, now they might be a shoplifter because they've only got to go from there to freedom to get out. But sadly, things actually get even worse because even though, according to our shoplifters in that mini documentary, that everyone's doing it, and even if they stop, there's still going to be tons of crime out there and this will still be a problem, although that's true. In 2022, it was discovered that around a third of all shoplifting was committed by just 300 people. A third of the shoplifting market. 300 100 people. It's probably more than that now, but that just makes this sound so preventable. Just lock them up. Are we supposed to believe that there aren't 300 places to put criminals anywhere in New York? We've got a lot of jails. For some reason, we would just rather have our businesses shut down than use them and get these people off the streets, because we've still got leaders in this city that see shoplifting as a victimless crime, even though the victims of that crime are having their vehicles stolen and having their stores closed down, losing their jobs, losing their ability to get to work, paying higher prices when they buy everything from t-shirts to groceries. Sadly, it's the law-abiding in this city who are the real victims. They're the ones that pay the price for all of these empty police cars driving around without criminals in the back. And until people make the connection between the high cost of living that we're all paying and the cost of crime, it's never going to be stopped, because we're the real victims, the people who pay for things, the people who live their lives and do the right